Welcome to the Lifetime Assembly channel. My name is John, and today I'm going to help you assemble your climbing tower with slide. Before we get started, make sure the model number of your climbing tower is listed in the description below. This video will follow the steps outlined in the assembly manual that comes with the climbing tower, so if you've already begun and need help on a specific step, check the description below for timestamp associated with each step. Your climbing tower comes in two separate boxes, so let's take a look at what you should have received. There are steps within this assembly that require more than one person, so be sure to have at least one other adult available to help. Before we get into the assembly process, let's take a look at the tools you'll need to complete the job. You'll need a 3/16 Allen key, which is included, a 7/16 wrench, a 1/2 inch socket, a 3/8 drill bit, a Phillips head bit, safety glasses, and a drill. You may see us use an impact driver. If you decide to use one as well, be sure not to over torque or over tighten the hardware. To make this easier, we're going to use a 3/16 hex head socket, a 1/2 inch wrench, a 1/2 inch deep socket, and a socket adapter. You will also need additional tools to prepare the shock absorbing surface for the climbing tower, so refer to your manual to see which additional supplies you'll need. This video is meant to be used as a companion to the assembly manual and not a direct replacement, so for the best results, make sure to have the assembly manual on hand during the build. When building your climbing tower, choose a level area free from obstructions and at least 7 feet from buildings, trees, fences, or any other object. Also, to reduce the risk of injury, it's important that you prepare a shock-absorbing surface to build your climbing tower on, like wood chips or recycled rubber mulch. This video will focus on the assembly of the tower and not the shock-absorbing surface, so it's important that you refer to your assembly manual to review the safety instructions for this build. Alright, let's get started. With the help of another person, lift the deck panels up at a 45-degree angle, interlock the tabs, and then lay it back down. You'll notice these tabs on the ends, one that's higher and one that's lower. The one that's lower needs to go under the one that's higher. Take the blue tubes labeled HLD and place them into these grooves along the edge of the deck panel. Make sure the crimped ends overlap and the holes line up. Take the two deck support tubes, which are the two longest tubes, and place them into these grooves on the bottom of the deck panel. Make sure the crimped ends on the tubes face in and that the holes on the tube line up with these grooves on the bottom of the deck panel. If they don't, flip the tube so that the holes line up with the grooves. Once you've verified the crimped ends are facing in and the holes line up with the grooves, insert the hardware from the bottom going up. Secure the ends of the support tubes to the deck tubes going from the inside out. Only finger tighten this hardware for now. Then secure the other deck tubes together with the hardware. Take the tubes labeled FXK and lay them over the bolts, making sure they go into these grooves. Add the hardware to the bolts that are closer to the edge of the deck panels. Take the last tube labeled FXK and place it over these bolts, making sure it lays in this channel on the bottom of the deck panel and then secure with the hardware. For each tube labeled FXK, you'll notice these divots on each side of the tube. Add the brackets over the divots and then secure with the hardware. On each joint around the deck, remove the nut from the bolt. Add 2 tubes labeled G and F, making sure they're oriented like this, and then reinstall the nut. Take a tube from the previous step from one joint and attach it to a tube from the neighboring joint. Line up the holes in the ends, insert the hardware oriented like this, and only finger tighten the hardware for now. Repeat this process for each tube around the deck. Remove the nut on one of these joints. Add a tube labeled G and E, and then replace the nut. On the neighboring joint, remove the nut from the bolt. Add the other end of the tube labeled G and E to this bolt. Add a new tube labeled G and E and then replace the nut. Repeat this process, working your way around the entire deck. When you get to the final joint, add the last tube over the first tube you added. On one joint, remove the nut. Add 2 tubes labeled G and F and then replace the nut. Repeat this process on each joint around the deck. Grab a tube from 2 neighboring joints, line up the holes in the ends, and add the hardware going from the outside in. The hardware will only be finger tightened for now. Repeat this process for each set of tubes around the deck. Remove the nut from one of the joints. Add a tube labeled GND to the inside and replace the nut. On the neighboring joint, remove the nut. Add the other end of the tube from the previous step to this bolt. Then add another tube labeled GND and replace the nut. If you're having a hard time getting all of the tubes onto the bolt, I find it helpful to fully tighten the joints below, as well as the joint you're working on, to flatten the joint, which creates more space on the bolt. Repeat this process, working your way around the assembly. On the final joint, remove the nut and add the last tube over the first tube and then replace the nut. Now you can tighten all of the hardware holding the GND tubes to the GNF tubes. With the help of at least one other adult, lift the assembly right side up. Locate these divots on the deck panel and then push down as you insert a self-tapping screw, which is designed to go through the metal underneath. As you can see, our tube doesn't line up with the groove, so before we continue, you can push on the joint until the tube lines up with the groove. Now tighten all the hardware on the middle joints. Where the deck panels meet is where your slide will go. Locate the joints on either side and add one tube labeled GNG. At the remaining joints at the top, add 2 tubes labeled GNG. Connect 2 neighboring tubes together at the top, leaving the section where the slide goes open. On one of the joints, remove the nut and add a tube labeled GNG. Replace the nut, add the other end of the tube to the neighboring joint while adding another GNG. Repeat this process all the way around the tower, leaving the area open where the slide will go. On each joint, remove the nut, add a tube labeled GNH, and then replace the nut. Connect the other end of the tubes labeled GNH together, making sure the hardware sticks up. Now go ahead and tighten all the hardware. You'll know the hardware is tight when you can no longer see the threads of the bolt. On all the exposed bolts, add a washer and a handhold, making sure the notch on the back of the handhold fits over the crimped end of the tube. Then secure with a nut. The slide will come in 2 different pieces and will eventually be connected together. Locate these divots at the bottom of the slide and drill them out with a 3/8 drill bit. On the bottom part of the slide, drill out the holes with a 3/8 drill bit. Slide the 2 halves of the slide together and then secure with the hardware. Locate these 3 divots at the top of the slide and drill them out with a 3/8 drill bit. On the underside of the deck where the slide will go, locate the 3 divots and drill them out with a 3/8 drill bit. With the help of another person, lift the slide up onto the deck and line up the holes at the top of the slide with the holes on the deck. And then secure with the hardware. Thank you for watching this video on how to assemble your lifetime climbing tower with slide. If you found this video helpful, give us a thumbs up. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our customer service team and check out our other awesome products at lifetime.com.